Hi everybody, my name is Mark Walton-Hayfield. I'm from Envision Digital and I'm here to talk to you about energy efficiencies for farming and what we can do. Before we get into that, I just wanted to say thank you to Springfield Agri and Save Our Soil for asking me to come and speak about this topic. I'm a director in our business, completely focused on running and growing our business in the UK and Ireland. I've been with Envision Digital for around 6 months, and I focus on both technology from a software point of view and also the business side of things, where I've worked in a number of asset-intensive industries. Essentially, I'll explain a bit more about Envision Digital and where we've come from, but we are at the core of net zero carbon and the automation of decision making using digital twins, really connecting up devices, data, driving insights and innovative applications. This session will be more of a, whilst it's live, it'll be more of a broadcast, but there will be opportunity to answer questions that you might have through the chat window, and we'll have a panel session straight after that Mark Shaler is going to host after the break. It'd be great to get your thoughts and questions, and we'll be able to discuss them in that panel session. So just to explain a little bit more about Envision, our aim is to solve the challenges that are required for a sustainable future. And one of our core areas and the origin of Envision as a business and Envision Digital is creating a world of beautiful energy. And by beautiful energy, we mean energy that's both green and clean, but also being affordable for everybody. And it's through optimization of the complete value chain for energy and the infrastructure that surrounds it that will be explained in some of the case studies that I'll talk about, that we enable this to happen. Whilst I'm part of Envision Digital, we are a broader group of 5 entities. So just very quickly, we're a global business, as you can see from the map, operating in most parts of the world. But we have research and development, engineering and manufacturing of wind turbines and batteries. We also have our venturing business. We're also part of the Formula E sort of circuit, and we have our Envision Virgin racing team on that team that we own. We use that to test some of our capabilities, mature up some of our thinking, and we'll explain more about that as we move on. Envision Virgin Racing are really quite interesting because they're already a net zero business, one of the cleanest and greenest businesses on the Formula E circuit. So I guess from a farming perspective, and just to set a bit of context and being open and honest and transparent, I don't have a significant background in agriculture, so please go easy with me a little bit on this. But what I can see is that farmers have been using data for centuries. Essentially the farming community, agriculture community are extensive users of all sorts of data, whether that be soil data, crop data, weather data, and so on, and using this to improve yields, learning how to farm the land, and the changing nature of the land is core to the DNA of what you do. Many of you will already be familiar with some of the things that we use in renewable energy, such as solar and wind, to generate new sources of electricity, and you probably might have some installations on your land. What's changed over the past couple of years is the role that batteries can play in this situation. And what we're seeing is that either in front of the meter, at the side of the meter, or behind the meter, the peaks and troughs of renewable energy from wind or solar can be better managed when they're integrated with batteries. The UK is actually really very innovative compared to other parts of the world for the use of battery storage projects for energy. National Grid enabling the ability for owners of assets to get returns on their investment in solar and wind and battery through participation in flexibility markets, ancillary markets, virtual power plants, which enable more income streams on the investments that you make when energy and storage are combined together in a single location. And what we see as a business is that many more gigawatts of projects are coming online over the next 2 to 3 years, where we'll start to see this combination of energy generation and storage, and also the retrofitting of storage to solar and wind farms. What's also changed is the powerful tools that are at your hands and your disposal are more accessible than they've ever been, and the ability to process that data in order to reduce waste, increase utilization, reduce energy consumption, and enabling you to look ahead to the future with more certainty. And farm owners, landowners, developers are all part of a valuable community that can both prosume energy rather than just simply consume energy for both public and private usage. Essentially, cities don't have the space and the land that you have. And with the sort of artificial intelligence and Internet of Things, which the platform that Envision Digital have, you can capitalize on these, finding new ways to save costs, reduce waste, and create new services for farming and energy. So I'm going to come on to some case studies in a moment, but just to summarize before I do, essentially Envision Digital's focusing on Internet of Energy and net zero carbon, and the machine-to-machine optimization of assets using digital twins. We do that through a platform that importantly enables integration and synergy for all types of renewable energies, and enables that data to be connected to, processed, and applications to be developed on top of it. And we do that in order to reduce operational costs, create new sources of revenue, and deliver projects for clients, two of which I'm really pleased to be able to share with you. The first one really focuses on high fidelity weather forecasts. These are really critical for both safety reasons and operational excellence reasons. And our application is quite unique. One of the applications we've built called EnWeather is quite unique in enabling that, in enabling 1 kilometre by 1 kilometre, right up to 500 kilometre plus, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, onwards forecasting. And we've proven that at over 90% accuracy in a number of use cases. We have a meteorology COE in Singapore, and we're creating a second one in the UK this year. And this has been critical to how we optimize the performance of renewable energy assets for our customers, prevent lightning strikes on power grids, and improve things like water sustainability and hydropower. We've been working on a project related to agriculture, which I'll come on to explain. Before I do, I just want to give you a sense of what this means in Envision Virgin Racing, who use our platform. Season 7 of Formula E is about to start. We work really closely with our colleagues in Silverstone. We became a majority owner of Envision Virgin Racing a couple of years ago. We've been providing the team with our weather forecasts from our application. It's been coupled with other critical data sources. So the race engineers can really understand the setup for the car and its energy management performance. In Paris, highlighted in green, in season 5, there was a really very unusual varied weather conditions throughout the race weekend. And having that access to minute by minute, 1 kilometre by 1 kilometre data enabled a first win for Robin Fringe in the Envision Virgin racing team, which was great. And we've seen more successes as data has really helped the team be successful. And it's really being used for that qualitative prediction of weather for race day. And the outputs of the weather forecasts, mostly we're using ambient temperature, track temperature and rain to influence practice, qualifying and pre-race plans. Whereas during the race itself, we take on other more immediate indicators, such as the driver and pit lane observations. But there's 2 key use cases that we're supporting in this instance. If it's raining, what will be the impact? So if there's a wet race, the track surface temperature will always be impacted. It's less about the tyres in Formula E, because you don't get to change between slicks and weather tyres and all-weather tyres. But the temperature of the surface will really influence the grip, both directly through tyre degradation and more indirectly, sort of energy in line expected at each grip at each race point in the race, and tyre setting pressures. The second bit is what's the probability a race might be temperature limited. So really this is about hindering or potentially helping the battery management and affecting the battery efficiency of the race car. This is really crucial because we need to keep the cell temperature of the battery below 72 degrees Celsius. Otherwise we see a drop in power. And then at 75 degrees Celsius, all power is lost. And equally in cold temperatures, the battery and the power are affected massively if the temperature falls below 7 degrees C. So hopefully that sort of brings that a bit to life for you. But from an agriculture perspective, we've been working with one of our, and bringing this back to farming, we've been working with one of our food and beverage customers who have a significant climate change exposure related to the raw materials that goes into their products. This is billions of pounds, and it's related back to the 1.5 degrees change that nations around the world and companies around the world are trying to solve, and which will be discussed in depth at COP26 later in the year, as we look to deliver on the Paris Agreement and refresh the thinking behind the Paris Agreement. And essentially we've set up a net zero innovation program with this customer over the next couple of years. And the first project will help them to reduce their losses by 10 to 15%, and improve their yield by 5 to 10%, using our EnWeather solution in a different way to how we've historically used it. And so historically, we've done those minute by minute or hour by hour predictions. But what we're doing now is really taking a number of key factors like temperature, precipitation, evapotranspiration across hundreds of farms globally. And we're using our EnWeather solution to do a couple of things over a long period of time. And this is a 7-month out forecast at farm level. So we're taking the data that comes from the ECMWF in Reading, their global model, their seasonal data set, creating a 7-month forecast from that, using a full set of low res data, And then combining that with local weather data, we might get that from many different sources. It could be paper records, it could be satellites, it could be weather stations, and then applying 3 levels of machine learning on top of that through our data science team. And those 3 levels of machine learning get us to that greater than 90% accuracy to provide that farm level forecast that's high resolution and 7 months ahead of time to support the planting, growing and harvesting decisions that the farmers need to make. So that's case study 1 around our EnWeather application. The second area I want to talk about relates back to energy generation and storage of energy. And Envision Digital is a key partner in a local authority-led climate emergency, unquote. I prefer to think of it as a climate opportunity, because there's lots of ways, you know, over the next 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, that we can do more with what we have to contribute to the decarbonisation of the UK and Ireland. And if we, you know, think about how land is used, you know, more or less 60% of it, you know, is farmland. And each of our nations in the UK and Ireland have got various commitments enshrined in law to get to net zero, you know, by 2045 in the case of Scotland, 2050 in the case of the UK as a whole, Ireland 2050, you know, Wales to get to 95% by 2025. And you know, there is a unique opportunity here for farmers and landowners to support these legally binding greenhouse gas emissions through using the land slightly differently. There's lots of government incentives, build back greener, you know, planning permissions, overall support for enabling job creation, protection of the environment and getting to net zero. And essentially, county councils, local authorities, you know, are getting involved in this as we start to develop solar, in this case, and microgrid storage projects, and then creating these guaranteed energy performance contracts back off the savings from these projects. And this is being enabled by a different way of thinking about energy. So traditionally, we put power lines, transmission grids in for a specific purpose, for a specific reason that's been utility led. But now we can put that infrastructure in place and stack value across multiple pools of revenue sources. I'll come on to explain that in a moment, but those multiple pools of revenue sources come from the same infrastructure and come from using the energy created in different ways for different purposes. Essentially, our platform provides the software that enables that, and we've scaled it up and down for smaller and larger projects. So getting to the nub of this, you know, we've been involved in, as part of winning that contract, creating an investment grade proposal for a real project. This is just one of them. There's many more, but it's taken a local authority owned tenanted agricultural land from a greenfield that you see on the left, and creating a green community energy centre that you see on the right. This was 24 hectares of farmland. It's next to an industrial park. The area is heavily constrained in terms of the local grid connections. And what we've done with that land is essentially created the plans and the business case to deploy a solar plant that will be 21 megawatts in power. It will have connection to 3 private wire customers that you see on the industrial estate at the back of it. It will have a connection to the DNO for export and grid services. It's got a 5 megawatt, 10 megawatt hour energy storage system. And it's got a microgrid that's balancing all these different vectors of energy usage between commercial, residential, ancillary services back to the grid, local energy needs of the environment. They're all being managed through various bits of business logic based upon when people need energy, where do they need it, what do we push over to storage, what do we expect export back to the grid. This area of land has also been developed so it has a biodiversity net gain over the total area than it had before. So whilst there is an impact, obviously, in terms of the energy infrastructure required, we're trying to do no harm in terms of the overall parcel of land. And in terms of the good that this is allowing, it's preventing 53,000 plus tons of CO2 emissions over 25 years. It's enabling 475 gigawatt hours of energy to be produced, and it's providing a significant payback. And then, just a little bit of detail in terms of how that happens. We bring in weather predictions to improve the forecasting for the solar performance and the energy needs. We go right the way down deep into the SCADA level controls of the assets being used. And we support all sorts of use cases from EV charging that wouldn't be possible otherwise, through to private wire agreements and substation management. So thanks once again. I'm looking forward to answering any questions, discussing things further after the break and in the panel discussion. Thanks very much.